I'm certain brighter days are yet to come. Ain't no question that tomorrow there'll be good times. Good times. I believe with every beat of my heart. 'Cause I'm certain brighter days are yet to come. Ain't no question that tomorrow there'll be good times. Good times. I believe with every beat of my heart. I'm on a one-way train, tenda mema nenda zangu do my best. Saa zingine wanga ni noma, imani yangu inanichoma, but I know there'll be a better day. Yeah, I'm living on the edge, sijui nitashukia kwa gani stage. Life inanisunda kwa kona, emotionally niko kwa border. I pray for better days. 'Cause I'm certain brighter days are yet to come. And no question that tomorrow there'll be good times. Good times. Oh darling, I believe with every beat of my heart. Siku zikizidi, nazidi makinika zaidi. I'm holding on a little bit longer. A little bit longer. What doesn't kill you makes you stronger. I see a better day. Hey. Visions of love from up above. The sun is not too far away. Now I shut up, now not far. I know I will be okay. Reach for the stars with everything in my heart. I know. 'Cause I'm certain brighter days are yet to come. Ain't no question that tomorrow there'll be good time. Oh, I believe with every beat of my heart. Yeah, there's gonna be days like these. We need to be stronger. Misuko na mahangaiko ni hali ya dunia, Mungu yupo. And on days like this, we need to rise up. Wakijaribu kutuzika tutajaminate. Our lives will never be the same.
Thank you so much. So we are going to start in the interest of time. So thank you so much for taking your time to join this session. We are so honored to have you here today. Our today's session, Navigating the Salesforce Ecosystem with Clarity and Confidence. And today we are going to learn how Salesforce projects are actually delivered. And I am so excited about this. So before we start, I would like to do a quick check-in. Please tell us in the chat where you're joining us from, and we'll be happy to hear that. And a little housekeeping, please remember to keep your mic off if you're not speaking. If you'd like to comment or ask a question, you can go ahead and raise your hand, or you can type it in the chat. And above all, we are going to have a Q&A at the end of this session. As usual, I would like to remind you that this session is being recorded, and by joining this session, you consent to be recorded. Thank you so much for joining. So let's go ahead and have our question for today. So today we are checking in. Right now, how confident do you feel about how Salesforce projects are delivered? Be honest, this is a safe space. So you can use the code for Mentimentor and let us know. Let's do it, and then we can go ahead and start our session.
I've also shared the link in the chat box. They can also join using the link.
Okay, okay. So we have one person is very confident. We are so happy to have you because you'll be of help. And then we have 3 confident, and we have the rest of the team not confident. But it's not a problem because we are getting there. So today's session is meant to have you gain confidence before we get our hands dirty as we start our project. So I'd like to promise you that by the end of this session, we are going to be feeling better. I promise you that. So I would like to take this opportunity and welcome our founder, Margaret, so that she can give us the welcome address. Welcome, Maggie. And you're looking good.
Oh, thank you. Thank you, Angela. Hi, everyone. Good evening, good afternoon, good morning, depending on where you are at. Karibuni sana to our second session. It's good to see you all here again 1 week later. I'm so happy to see you here and also ready to learn. So I would love to welcome René to bring in all the goodies, part 2. Karibu sana René.
Thank you so much, Asante sana. Yeah. Okay, should I get started? Or
Yes, please.
Yes,
yeah,
yes,
yeah,
go
sorry,
ahead.
I was waiting for the green light. So let me see application windows. Boom. Share. Yeah, thank you so much for having me in this part 2 of our 2-part series, Navigating the Salesforce Ecosystem with Clarity and Confidence. Today, I'll be focusing on how projects, namely Salesforce projects, are actually being delivered in real life. And we'll be looking into Salesforce roles around those projects. Actually, not too much in the related career paths, so that's a bit of a misnomer at this moment. But I'll bear in mind to say a few words about it in the end nonetheless. So I can also include more content on this in the published version. Maybe one word about myself. I've been in the ecosystem a real long time. I could gather experience in various Salesforce roles, including the architect role, and work across a number of customers and a number of industries to deliver Salesforce projects. And I was especially fortunate to be part of a larger banking program that allowed me to really explore roles in a quite large setting. So let's get started. Now, today we'll be looking into first a brief reminder of what we covered last time, namely how the Salesforce ecosystem is structured, and I've not elaborated on the use of maps this time around, but what I have retained for this part is only the maps, which is of course logical. So we'll start with a brief reminder, and then we'll enter right away into the subject of the business need and the business value according to the 5 factors model. As a brief coverage of that subject, which I felt was really key to understanding the why of projects before we enter into the how and what, or rather not so much the what. I'll not be speaking about Salesforce products today, but about roles and project delivery. So these are the further topics. And this has been extremely short, but I'll conclude with a brief outlook on how we'll continue covering role content and role guidance in the Launchpad program. And it is really mostly original content. In 2 instances, I've reused existing content because I couldn't revise everything, but I'm sure it will fit really nicely. So if we do a brief recap, now this is the overview from last time. I'll completely leave out today, in the interest of time and of relevance, the part about developing one's personal brand. Not that that is not important, but that will be a subject for another day. I think it will be the subject within the program, hopefully, of another webinar. Then the last time I covered the motivation in terms of one's own purpose for wanting to be in the Salesforce ecosystem. I referred to the advice for being successful and focused on learning about the Salesforce ecosystem and about roles as key factors for being successful in it. Where learning about the wider ecosystem was the main topic that received the most coverage. So let's do the quick recap. We start with the guiding light that each and every one of you individually needs to have in order to progress, in order to have a career, in order to get a job, I think. And that is a bit of a coaching approach where we ask, what is your what is your past? What is your history? Where are you coming from? So the basic assumption here is that this content is mainly for early career trailblazers. And we are, of course, in an African setting here, where most of you have achieved Salesforce admin, and congratulations on that. I know it was not an easy journey. And not to spend too much time on the recap, but the basic assumption here is that given the vastness of the Salesforce ecosystem, you are feeling a bit lost among all the different types of advice that you can have, or even where to find it, how to find a mentor, how to really explore and find what is for you. So you are probably in an orientation situation, and you should have a growth mindset with an open mind, not a closed mind, with a great deal of curiosity, wanting to move forward, not extremely fast but on your own, but more sustainably along with others, with friends, with teammates in the Launchpad program, that you summon your courage to speak up, to really explore the unknown that you know will be worthwhile exploring, and that overall constitutes your sense of purpose and gets you through this transition phase, at the end of which, or in the course of which, you will be so much more better positioned for finding your first Salesforce role and job, although that is never guaranteed, but we can only prepare, right? So that is where you want to be. In terms of advice, how to be successful, I will not go through this again in detail. The ecosystem can be mapped in quite clear ways. And I will briefly remind you of how we did that in part 1. As I said, we'll not go into the personal brand aspect, but today we'll hear much more than the last time about Salesforce roles. So in terms of ecosystem understanding, the last time around I proposed 2 models, namely the 5 factors model. And last time we did not really go into the technology, even not into the types of products. It is clear that this is a very important aspect. However, that is not the purpose of this kind of orientation we are doing here. So we are not doing product education. The purpose here is ecosystem education. The purpose is, to some extent, or to a large extent, career orientation. The purpose is, especially today, beginning specialist education. And we cannot do all types of education at once, as you'll probably understand. If we mix too many subjects, then it will be difficult to be clear and to provide clarity. So as important as the technology is, that we have to put a bit to the side and only use for the sake of illustration or for the sake of reference. I will actually be going a bit, so this is not entirely accurate. So this should be a bit like this. The coverage is actually wider today. So we go into business need and business value. And yeah, this works. So there's a grouping here. So I've grouped business need and business value together because they belong together. The focus is actually today on the business need, not on the value metrics. So the value is only highlighted in passing. And we are mainly focusing on skilled work and the strategic execution context, although that chapter is a bit shorter. So that is a model which can allow you to quickly express how the Salesforce ecosystem works. So you could, for example, say to someone, I've so far focused on the technology. I've become a Salesforce admin. Now I need to learn more about actual Salesforce jobs, which are for a large part not admin, but different roles. And I have to learn a bit more about how businesses actually operate, how they generate value, and when and why they use Salesforce. So that is a knowledge that you get a bit bits and pieces of when you study for admin. You learn use cases, why an organization would use Salesforce. So you know that it does generate value, you know that organizations use it, but you don't exactly know how all of that comes about. And that is something you want to clarify today. Then I also proposed another model that is today much less relevant. Actually, we'll not be using it today, but I wanted to briefly include it nonetheless. That enables you more to speak about the actors in the ecosystem and where they are working, what kind of mindset they're having, and so on. So let's skip that a bit. In terms of overview, and that will be the finishing of the recap almost, just two more elements. Then the 5 factors model responds to and explains the why projects are done, what they are done with, namely the technology, and how they are actually delivered. And whereas the 4 zones model, as I just said, focuses on where this happens at a customer, done by a partner, and with the products of the mothership, with maybe tools and learnings from the community and so on. If we briefly remind us finally of the advice that consists in taking the admin knowledge you have and say, okay, I've covered that base. I can either strategically go more deeply into the admin role and really be a Salesforce admin as a profession, or I can, what is the majority of the job market, I would say, and the roles that partners are seeking mainly, I can be other roles. I need to put a toe in the water. I need to try them on for size. Can use Trailhead to do that. I can use a project simulation. I can read a book. I can watch a video. I can do so many things to acquaint myself with other roles, to shift left into roles that actually are needed for delivering a Salesforce project. So that would be the idea that we covered. And if you're actually early mid-career trailblazers, then you are well positioned in the ecosystem. But in your exploration, you have yet before you to actually shift into a delivery role. So far for the recap. I hope that was not too long. Now, for understanding within the 5 factors, the business need, and maybe to a bit lesser extent, the business value. So we'll briefly cover what is actually a business need. If somebody asks you, René, what is a business need? Then you may not have directly a definition, and we'll offer several here so that you are more confident about answering such type of question. I'm saying any business. I could also have written any organization, and it is a bit of a truism. Like we all want to better our lot. Any company wants to deliver better results and be more successful. At least that's the basic assumption. Here we are, of course, looking through on this through the lens of information technology. that a company wants to leverage IT to be better. And if we look at an organization, we are immediately subdividing it into different business function. That is even a subconscious process. Once you hear about Sales Cloud and Service Cloud, even if you don't know a great deal about business, you will subconsciously learn that sales is very important and that service is very important. And that is not a given that you have come across either sales or service in your life. Maybe you have done something else and you don't really know how sales works. That is where business knowledge and how organizations function is really useful. And I think this high-level briefing can add value here to make you more confident about that. So if you imagine an organization, and I'll come to a map in a minute, then it has different functions that perform specific activities, like they execute tasks. They come in the morning. We'll hear more about that in the Launchpad program when we go deeper into roles, and they do specific tasks. And when we look at this through the goggles of IT, if I put on my business analyst glasses, then what I see is not the task and not the daily operations, but I immediately look at the question, to which business process does that belong? What is the business model of the organization? And what are their procedures? So if they have a new joiner, how do they onboard that person? They have to have kind of manual or a training schedule. If they have a new junior sales, how do they onboard that person? It's not only by verbal briefings, I guess, although that might be the case that happens, but usually a bit larger organizations or that are not complete startups are streamlining their employee onboarding using appropriate materials and documentations. And in the age of AI, that would even be much easier. So if that does not yet exist, then you could even create it by talking about your business knowledge into a microphone, and then the AI could process that recording into meaningful documentation. That is actually feasible. Not saying you should do it. Further, a business need is like an umbrella term for any kind of problem that is waiting to be solved. So when we say that in IT and Salesforce, we mean that we want to sell a product and the organization has identified deficiencies and issues that they have and pains. So their need is articulated as a lack of satisfaction, as a lack of efficiency, as a lack of streamlined business operations, that people come to work and they complain to their boss, look, this is not working, I'm losing so much time here. The bottom line could be so much better if we had better tools. And so here I've written software tools. I've not used the word tools enough maybe here. So again, we come to the business function, and the business function does not exist in isolation. It collaborates cross-functionally with others to deliver its contribution to the specific business value. For example, the sales department or the marketing department within the overall so-called value chain. So that is something I would also like to focus on a bit more as we go downstream into the Launchpad program. So for instance, marketing is typically asked to find and qualify leads so that sales can work them and sell the company's products. And then if we are in sales, we want to close so many deals to have a specific quota of sales, and we don't want to just shell out the products at a convenient price to the customer, but we want to do so at under specific conditions with a specific margin and a specific profitability that is required of us. And then once customers have services or products from us, then typically they have issues with them, like something doesn't work, or they even have a question. They need even a compliance certification or whatever they need. They need many things, and then they will contact the company. And then if we are in business a bit longer, we'll have an evolved customer service function and so on. So, and all of those want to operate efficiently. Now, if we look at this a bit more graphically, then we can see that there is like a chain of operations. Each operational function, or maybe not operational function, each overall function, and specifically each more operational function, comes one after the other. So there are the masterminds that develop the probably complex products, even if they're easy to use, maybe even holding patents or whatnot. Research and development, the famous R&D. And then there come the more practical people that say, now how do we subdivide and package these products and services? How do we label them, and what do we call them? And then they hand this over to marketing unless we have to manufacture a physical product, and then marketing does something clever to publicize the services and to run campaigns, to make them more visible, and to excite prospects and future customers about this. Like Netflix makes a certain intro offer, and then you say, hey, I want to have Netflix. And then you are so addicted to Netflix that you are a lifelong subscriber for 10 years or 5 years or whatever. So the company sales effort might not be as visible to you. For some types of service, it might be very transparent in the sense that it's happening like on the fly. You are subscribing to a service, and that's the sales, but you are just an individual. Maybe a company has a different need. If there is a corporate customer, then they want to negotiate. So that's clearly a sales activity, to negotiate larger contracts with customers. So from our individual end user and retail perspective, we don't always see that, how it's happening. And our retail needs as an end user can already be very complex. Like if I have a mobile phone, something goes wrong with that, then can be a complex thing to resolve all of that. Imagine a corporate customer having 1,000 mobile phone subscriptions, and then you need a customer service agent who can handle that. If something goes wrong with all of that. And here what I've highlighted are typical CRM use cases. So in the first instance, at least classically, we know that Salesforce has this gigantic product portfolio, even with manufacturing cloud and health cloud, and covers so many sectors and whatnot. But the on-platform, marketing cloud is not on-platform classically, but the core platform products such as Sales Cloud and Service Cloud, they are still the biggest products and the ones we think of in the first instance for many organizations as a basic potential fit. So we will not be starting with Experience Cloud if we don't have Sales Cloud usually, or something like that. In terms of analyzing a business, here I see various functions, and some of those functions are more interesting because we can directly map without custom development or without the app exchange specific products to them. And I'll not stay too long on this. So the interest, let's say in our example here, is on marketing, on sales, and on service. And these are, let's say, the products that Salesforce has grown big on. Now, in a Salesforce context, and I already spoke about that, we are matching a suitable Salesforce product to an existing business need, knowing that this kind of product, when adapted to the specific customer's needs. So here need is a bit ambiguous. So need was the pain that led to the inquiry about the product. And then now it's something more detailed, like a catalog of needs, of concrete needs in a more neutral stance. So we do what we call solutioning. We are matching a product to a business need. So when you bring in an account executive from the mothership, and then it's a more complex scenario. They will bring their friends, the solution engineers, and then they will demonstrate the solution and so on. Basically, all you have to do is say, I need you, and I invite you to come and to demonstrate, and then you fix a date, and then the rest happens if you have the funding. And so, for instance, with the famous Marketing Cloud, we can deliver a better customer experience across so many touch points, web, mobile, email, and so on. And with Sales Cloud, we can boost the efficiency of the sales department and close deals faster. And with Service Cloud, we can be more efficient about resolving customer queries, not least because we are building a knowledge base and we can reuse solutions that we map to cases and so on. So I've briefly visualized this kind of solutioning approach here. So this is clearly a form of Salesforce architecture. It is a high-level architecture where we say we have a need and we map a solution to it. And I've not written this here, but this is kind of a discovery. I'll come to that expression a bit further down. So that is the usefulness of such type of visualization. I would also like to introduce the concept of business capability, and unfortunately, this is a subject I like very much. We cannot go far into that. So a business capability is not the same thing as a business process, but is rather what the business process is there to enable. So people are not fond of business processes at all. And they are a necessity. What we really want is the capability, for example, the capability to generate leads. And then we put this in the context of a marketing process as one of the core business capabilities in the larger context of such a process, of set of processes. And we want to close deals, so we have to have opportunity management, and that gives us a core capability in sales. We want to manage cases. Actually, the capability is more request management, but let's not be technical here. So that's a core capability in service. And if we could go further into this, then we would see that marketing, sales, service, they are not only business functions, but from the optics of business capabilities, they are actually value streams. They deliver part of the organization's value in a specific way. And we can draw maps how that works. And we can say in sales, we have 10 capabilities that the organization needs to function. And with a Sales Cloud implementation, we can cover 5 of those because we only have the budget in a first iteration for 5. And it also doesn't make sense to do everything at once, you know. So these business capabilities as a general idea are extremely useful. Also, this whole solutioning approach that we are mapping solutions to business needs, that is really in the end, when we look at the fine grain level about business capabilities, we review the set of capabilities that such a Salesforce product has out of the box with the set of capabilities that we need for our business. So that's actually consulting in a sense of advisory. First, we advise what we should do, and then we proceed to implementation. Now, when we implement Salesforce, and I've not actually reused this graphic in a more broader sense, that I've actually taken from a previous presentation, just to highlight business capabilities. If we implement Salesforce, leaving aside the details of the technology and coming in a minute to roles and projects, then in the beginning, we want to understand how this organization works. So that is the first question you need to always ask when you go on any project, when you encounter any prospect or customer, or because it can be an existing customer with whom you do another project, stuff like that. Your first question is, what is the problem and what is the business need? And which kind of solutions are fitting here? And then you do a high-level assumption. Okay, this could maybe be solved with Service Cloud. And then you dig deeper. Then you bring in a business analyst and have a bit of deeper discovery and speak to stakeholders about their processes, about the capabilities they need to cover. So Salesforce is not all about the technology. It's very much about developing a kind of business understanding. So what sector is this organization in? Okay, this is banking. What kind of bank is it? What do they want? Can they live with Sales Cloud? Do they need Financial Services Cloud? Do they need a customer portal? Do they need Experience Cloud? How will they make data flow? Do they need MuleSoft? And when you debate all this, I predict that you will be quite lost without business capabilities. Of course, on a smaller project where things are more intuitive, you can live for a while without that, but I wouldn't recommend it. It's so easy to work with that. And I think globally it's very underutilized. I don't hear this enough, but we'll learn more about business capabilities, I think, in the Launchpad program. So far for our subject of understanding the business need and business value. So I've not spoken too much about business value, as you noticed, and there's more to be said about that. Yeah. So in terms of takeaways from this, what should you take away? So first of all, the keyword value chain. An organization operates in a series of value-creating processes that are typically consolidated into the classical departments. Like people are learning when they are doing an MBA. I haven't done an MBA, but I'm sure that's what they are learning, how to organize a company. And then you will have these famous business functions such as sales, marketing, service, that actually need business capabilities to do their work. And if they don't have good tools, then they use not so good tools. If they don't have Salesforce, they'll be using Excel. If they don't have, I don't know, a project management solution, they'll be using Excel. So there are fallbacks. There is what we call shadow IT. So not to introduce too many terms. Something that resembles IT, but is not truly professional information technology adapted to a specific business need. And that is not defined for everyone. So the common characteristic of a professional solution is that its usage is defined. If you give somebody Excel, nothing is basically defined unless you write a manual how they have to use it, but I doubt that they will follow. So anyway, we have business processes, then use cases. I said here above that very high level, so use cases can be very large or can be a bit smaller, that you could say we have a use case for Sales Cloud in your sales organization. That would not be wrong. It would just be very high level because the real use cases would be corresponding to the business capabilities and business processes. So a given business process, I don't know, opportunity management or sales performance management. So if you close an opportunity, you earn a commission. And if I close 20 opportunities, then we need to calculate the commission amount and how am I incentivized as a salesperson to close opportunities and such. That is sales performance management. That is a very specific, not micro, but very specific capability. And then I can try to cover that with Sales Cloud. And I can also say that's a use case that I want to use Salesforce for. So coming back to the takeaways, and solutioning as the high-level mapping of solutions to problems. And there is so much more to be said about all of this. But we need to introduce the terms once, right? Now about skilled work. So we are getting more to the heart of what we are looking at today. And I need to speed up a bit. So project delivery roles, that was a term I introduced earlier as being essentially not the admin role. We can somehow make an admin participate in a project, no worries. But roles, and we'll come to which these roles are here in our example, that actually collaborate to bring a project alive. And there are, according to the sizes of customers and the sizes of budgets and the durations of projects, there are larger and smaller and mid-sized projects, okay? The largest is called enterprise. And we'll be using this example. Why? Because it gives us the clearest view so that one person performs one role. And this is also how the Launchpad program is organized. I think you can guess that on a smaller project, the same person can be called upon to do several roles. I'm not saying that's bad, that's reality, but the roles as such still exist. And the problem is that then we often cannot clearly define the transition between the roles and things get a bit blurry and quality suffers. Also because of bandwidth, because if we call upon one or two person to perform 3 or 4 roles, it's not that they will be immediately feeling bad because they have to do that, but they have to labor under a higher cognitive load because they'll be having a much broader range of activity and they need to sort of switch mindset from time to time, and that's not always easy. We can only talk about a subset of key roles here, and I'll show you, I'll tell you which these are. And to quickly present each role and to quickly go through it, we'll be using role cards. The roles are, I didn't write that here. So I wrote it here, architect, project manager, business analyst, and the low-code and pro-code developer have grouped together because they share basically an identical, very similar mindset, and then testing or quality assurance. Now I'm going back up to the role cards. Let's start with the architect, not by coincidence, but because the architect role actually is a bit earlier. So let me switch to a slide that is more farther in the presentation to illustrate that. So we start by defining in the beginning. And when I say define architectures, I mean that we define the global layout and blueprint of a project. in terms of its more technical side, in terms of how we are solving, how we are solutioning, and how the project will work in terms of roadmap and so on. And then we bring in a project manager to handle the organizational details, the financial side, and so on. Then a business analyst comes in and actually does concrete work on saying which applications we should have exactly and what their requirements are. Then that is negotiated with the business and with the technical team, what is actually feasible and what can we pay for, what is out of scope, what is in scope, and so on. The developer then do their job and produce testables. They produce the product that we need in adapting Salesforce usually. And then we take those testables and test them, and then we get defects, we resolve them, we go live, and so on. So coming back to the role cards, let me speak a bit about the architect role. So the architect takes as inputs really high level and really early inputs. That is basically role-wise the person, that is typically the consulting director or somebody, but they do have an architect mindset. They see the raw business need, they enumerate business capabilities, they enumerate business processes, maybe side by side already with business analyst, and they pinpoint the business value together with the customer. The customer then takes decisions, provides existing documentation, and the architect then engages in solutioning, in much greater detail than I was illustrating previously, through workshops with stakeholders to get a feeling for what's needed. Do we need this module? Do we need that module of Service Cloud, of Experience Cloud? Do we need a data product? Then there are decision committees, and the deliverables that the architect produces are validated through certain processes. And in a project, an architect also provides guidance, typically for other roles, and oversees generally the documentation. And in an ideal scenario, and needless to say, this is not always the case, but when we start doing projects with the customer, then that customer should receive a roadmap. What are we doing when, and how much does it cost? And then we will be going into a concrete project. So the architect is a person who can size something, that can scope something very high level, and that can guide the whole project with a data model. And unfortunately, we cannot go into these artifacts, these deliverables in detail, then we would have a much longer session here. And a landscape, a data flow diagram, how do the different systems hang together? How do we get from the current scenario to the future state? And how do we make different systems talk to each other? So if you know about architecture, not even being an architect, and you see a project going on, you can say, do you have a roadmap? Where's your data model? Can I please see the solution landscape? And if people don't have a proper answer to that, then something is very terribly wrong, actually. Then in terms of project management, that is something that is maybe more resonating with some, because they have previous project management experience or so. So the project manager takes almost the same inputs as the architect, but uses them differently and already works side by side with an architect. So a project manager is reliant on input from a more technical person, clearly. The project manager is not the technician who can go into minute details of the technology. That is rather the architect, and resolve detailed questions. But the business capabilities, I hope that project managers understand this generally, are the same, and they obey the same decisions, and they take a roadmap already as input, and then they are given the task of defining a concrete project through workshops, through decisions. They probably have to handle several projects in parallel. Once a project starts, they will be representing the PMO function, the project management office, and they'll participate naturally in status meetings and even make them happen. So they are supposed to be collaborating on the sizing and scoping of projects, and also be able to answer the rationale of a project, which is an aspect that I have not even mentioned here. So what do we expect from them? We expect a project plan. We expect a collaboration. So that is actually more usually a consultancy thing, but a statement of work that details what is going to happen delivery-wise. And for example, to assign to everybody their tasks and to monitor the task execution. So that is the detail of the project management office. So there it gets pretty fine-grained and technical. But overall, you could say, please, where's the project plan? So project plan tells us high level. So that is basically the zoom into the roadmap. The roadmap tells us high level which project are we doing now and why, and which will be the next project that we expect, and which was the previous project, and how do they bring value to the business. And the project plan tells us which phase of which project and which milestones are going to happen when, and then we have to have a communication if something's delayed, and have to extend the budget and so on. So there's so much to be said about project management. Then becoming more concrete here, the business analyst takes a similar set of inputs as the previous two, but works with a smaller responsibility typically. Business analysts can also be extremely high ranking and very strategic in an organization. And they can even outrank an architect theoretically, but they'll not be defining the architecture, they'll be defining the business value, which is an aspect that I haven't sufficiently highlighted here, which I can add. So they'll take the decision from management. They'll also consume actually the project plan, and they'll focus on business processes and use cases. That is also actually like an output of their work, unless it already exists. And then they spend a lot of time with the business stakeholders, or a sufficient time, and they create detailed views of those requirements. They are the ones who know the techniques to get the detail of the requirements from the business, to produce valid requirements that the business signs off on, and that they can hand over and discuss with the technical team, and then do the sizing and scoping. And then once we have scoped, we know where to invest our energy, into which user stories for which business value, and so on. And then once the developers do their work and sprints begin, then defects arise. They typically participate in classifying defects. Is this a blocker? Is this a showstopper? Is that just an improvement suggestion for later, like an additional discovered requirement? And once the project goes live, they typically participate also in training or in pre-go live training of some sort. So they'll participate in testing and in training. The developer takes largely the input from the business analyst and from the project manager. and from the general documentation of the project that is shared by all, like why are we doing this? What kind of business capability are we delivering here? So that is like a briefing that I need to have if I'm a developer. I cannot just start coding or start developing a flow without context. And the user story does not always give me that context. So once I'm onboarded to the project and I understand why we are doing it, then I can start working on a set of user stories that is encapsulated in a defined period and workload. Together with others, I can work on sprints, and I can understand the epics, the larger motivations why we do this, and execute my project tasks that are assigned to me administratively. And I'll be capable as a developer of providing a feasibility assessment. Is that feasible with the technology, or I mean at the available budget? I have to estimate workloads. So I'm the one who can say this takes 2 days, or this takes 1 day, this takes 5 days. Is it a large story? Is it a small one? And I'll collaborate generally on the scoping. And I'll do the technical design on a specific feature. So what is requested of me is to deliver a certain functionality to the user, but I decide how concretely I design it behind the scenes. And then the result is visible in the estimation, and it should be the solution that is the most simple. Once the testers have identified defects, I have to resolve those. And unless there is a dedicated release manager, I'll also be deploying functionalities, deploying code, and so on, deploying metadata between environments. Typically not with change sets, but with more advanced mechanisms. So what is expected from me as outputs are estimations, designs, delivered functionality, deployed functionality, testable functionality, and of course, participation in the overall sprints, the work organization and development, and the ceremonies that pertain to it. That's quite a broad range of very closely related responsibilities. Now for the Q&A. I can only do my work once somebody, maybe myself, has written a test case. So I'll be taking as such business processes also as input and use cases. And I'll understand or co-define a test campaign. So we are not going into the detail of that today. There are several phases of testing. The first testing is done by developers themselves, kind of unit testing. Then we'll do functional tests of the more simple variety, even a smoke test. And then we'll bring various developments together and integrate them with each other, like integration testing, and then we'll go to the end user once that works and do user acceptance testing. And once that is green lighted, then we can deploy to production eventually. So there we need a sign off from the business. So a tester understands how all of that works, how I can take a use case and write at least 2 test cases for it, the happy and the unhappy scenario. If I have business testers in front of me, like key users from the business, then I'll guide them how they should do their testing job, because that's not their primary role, but it is mine. And I'll also maybe participate occasionally in defect triage and have to provide an opinion on that. So what is expected of me is finish testing, validations, raising defects. Raising defect is like a complex record. Also, the business users can do that and maybe participate in the defect reporting exercise to give visibility of the number of open defects and of the defect resolution rate and whatever. So that has already been quite long, I'm afraid. And we have to finish on that aspect, even if it is the heart of what we wanted to talk about. And I am totally sure that so many questions popped into your mind. What is René talking about when he says test case? What is he talking about when he says solution landscape? I'll be happy to explain. It won't be possible to explain all of this today, but we'll see about this a bit later. Not today, but later in the program. So if we want to group roles a bit, and you'll see this in the remaining slides as well. So all roles are extremely valuable. No project can really be delivered without those functions I described, and it is not a complete enumeration. For example, there is also management, IT managers. There are also release managers. There are also such and such security experts and whatnot. But we cannot make endless lists of specializations. We have to keep it to the main roles. And if we look at the main roles, what we see is that there are essentially two groups. One group produces diagrams, texts, documentation, guidance, and so on. That is the architect, the project manager, and the business analyst. And I've not written this here, but what I would require of them is that they are Salesforce certified. So they need to understand Salesforce. This goes without saying. And in a way of speaking, we can also say these are more functional roles. And they generally have more business contact. They are talking to the business by definition. And then we have roles that we could maybe call more execution-oriented because we are hands on the keyboard and writing software or configuring Salesforce or testing it. And when testing it, we need to know basically how the development worked as well a bit so that we communicate very well with the developers. So there's a bit of a shared mindset between those roles. And generally, they spend less time with the business. So far for these key role examples. Now, very briefly, and I did an extract from an earlier presentation on skills. Not to be long about this, but we need to hear a bit about, at least about the shared skills. And we need to have a typology of skills. And then in the further program, we can dive deeper into that. So on even a smaller scope of admin, so to reintroduce the admin role, business analyst and developer, and that is also true of the other roles mentioned, what are the skills that we need? So in terms of very basic core skills, if we want to embrace these roles, we need to be able to think analytically, to have a problem-solving approach, and to not be frustrated if somebody doesn't work the first time. We cannot throw in the towel, as we say in English, but we have to be very patient, very open-minded, oriented to receive feedback and improvement suggestions on everything. So whether we scope or whether we build an application or test an application or whatever, we cannot say, hey, we have already done that and we'll do no more of it, because tomorrow and the week after, probably somebody will come along and say, sorry, we forgot something, or sorry, something occurred to us. And then sometimes you have to say no, but sometimes you also have to say yes if it's really important and if it wasn't really anybody's fault and if we cannot move on without it. And especially for defects, then there are the famous regressions. You have already eliminated the defect, and then some other change in the code makes the defect reappear, and then that's a regression. And the work in IT can be pretty frustrating, actually, but it's also a very clear process, and it's very iterative. I mean, the less iteration, the less budget we consume, but in reality, it's often very iterative. People change their mind and so on. In terms of shared technical skills, everybody needs to know how we customize Salesforce, the core platform, I mean. Everybody needs to have a basic idea how we develop software and how we make a bespoke application, like with a custom object on Salesforce, how we secure Salesforce, that we don't leave it open to the world, how we take data into Salesforce, process it, and so on, and how we can work with raw data and turn it into reports and dashboards. How do we set Salesforce up? How do we automate it? How do we handle permissions and so on? And understanding a bit the business is actually also a basic skill. It's not so much a technical skill. Maybe that's not entirely correct here. And to leverage AI as well. So this is not about that, but there's much to be said about it. In terms of interpersonal skills, also true of all roles. So I especially included the developer here. Everybody needs to have empathy with one another and not say, no, that is not admissible. We might dismiss a core methodology of somebody else out of ignorance that we shouldn't do. So we should always ask, why are you doing this? Does that make sense? Is that the best practice? Is that helpful for us here and so on? So we need to be able to collaborate as a team. We need to have a certain resilience and patience with things, and we need to ideally be emergent leaders who lead ourselves and others, and so on. So there are lots of interpersonal skills that we need for information technology work. Now finally, almost finally, and I kept this part brief, and because I didn't manage to elaborate on it so much. But this is actually the highest level that you will see today. So let's dwell on that for 1 minute. Actually, in the program that we are entering, the Launchpad program, we'll be doing some pre-project activities and in-project activities. But it will be mainly about project delivery. And we'll have a project manager, and I think there will be a simulated go live. So all of those roles are occupying the middle ground. That is where everybody is active. If we would have a change manager, they would already be active then because they cannot spring into action at the last possible moment. So in terms of global phase, we'll be mostly in project. But we'll also have a small mindset of pre-project. So the pre-project has basically already happened because we are presented with like a finished scenario. But I think there will be some simulated discovery sessions or something resembling this so that we get a feeling for how discovery and scoping is done. These considerations will at least be voiced at one point, I think. But essentially, pre-project is something else that we largely will ignore and largely will not see and not go into. But projects arise from pre-project activities, so before the official start date of a project. If the start date of a project is the 1st of January, the pre-project happened in the prior year. It's guaranteed because somebody provided a budget, somebody did high-level solutioning, somebody said we can group these projects together in a program and so on. So the discovery was earlier because we're already having a project. We can never have a project without having done some discovery and putting together a blueprint, architecture-wise, a project plan, a roadmap, and these high-level deliverables. And only then can we enter a project. When we have set up the project management office, it would be kind of catastrophic if we start a project without a project management office and without everybody onboarded and mobilized. We need to mobilize the team. We need to hire the resources. We need to make sure they're available, that they understand the project and so on. There's overhead for this. Then we need to deliver the project, and eventually the project will hopefully deliver its value and go live. And then the set of roles will change in post-project. Still many roles will be involved. We are not going to have a post-project very much, I think, in this program. But this is where the real value is actually utilized by the business, where lots of change management springs into action, where there's post-go live training, where the whole adoption and business value realization happens. So there are specialists for that. So be mindful when you hear about a Salesforce project that already exists. Imagine for a moment how much effort went into defining it and greenlighting it. And when the project ends, it's not done. Then it becomes interesting. And then arises the need for new projects for the gaps in the previous project, okay? So I wish I had had such a diagram earlier in my career. And then I come back to this. We have already seen it now, and it's part of the advice for shifting left into project delivery roles. Left because the project definition happens early, and then the execution, and then the utilization of the functionality. So in a left to right writing system, we go upstream to the left. And yeah, essentially I've already spoken about this. So I kept this rather brief. I will briefly add a few lifecycle considerations. So I think you need to very briefly hear about the software development lifecycle, because that's a concept that Salesforce also uses. That is basically identical, more or less, with a bit of pre-project and with the project delivery. So the pre-project gives us the discovery. The project gives us the requirements. Somebody could also say only once we have scoped and gathered requirements will we actually start the project. Why not? That is a bit up to the organization, how they want to define it. For me, a project is already running once we gather requirements, because it's already guaranteed that we will have a project usually. Otherwise, we wouldn't invest in requirements gathering so much. And then we have the design, develop, test, train, and then the run. And so it's a life cycle. And there is even an architect specialization that is called the life cycle architect. That's not the correct title, but something like that. And I want to impress on you, if I haven't already, the concept of build versus run. So we heard about creating deliverables and such, and sometimes you see on LinkedIn that somebody specializes in building software, and sometimes you see that they specialize in running software. And I would, as such, say the admin of Salesforce is mainly a role that runs software. And in most contexts, that is actually true, unless we burden the admin with so many additional responsibilities that they can't do this job properly. But as such, it would be their main job. And if we build new applications and systems, or if we massively change existing systems, if we change our Salesforce very much, then we are having a project, whether we are calling that or not. Even if that's only one admin spending 50% of their time on new functionality, then there is an undeclared project going on. And then that admin will be having all of those roles. But we were speaking about the enterprise context. And to leave you with a final word, so I didn't highlight Agile. it didn't occur to me to do that in our project, in our program that will also be taken care of by Deria and Tech Geminis. But DevOps is something that we can briefly manage. So in our program, we'll be leveraging change sets to deploy, but you should be well aware that getting forward from one environment to the other, so I didn't illustrate this here. I could have, I think. That's a kind of omission. So we start in a kind of test environment and development environment where we develop software, where we build Salesforce, then we deploy it for first round of testing, and then we go to a user acceptance testing environment, typically, if we do a project professionally, with clear handovers between everything, where a developer says, hey, tester, I have deployed to test. You can do a smoke test there. Or when the test manager says, hey, everybody, everything is deployed to UAT. Next week, we are starting UAT, user acceptance testing. And the way we are handling all of this nowadays, technically via Git and GitHub and so on, and with automations and pipelines, and that is DevOps. And that is a very large discipline and a very important discipline for Salesforce project delivery. So I thought I'd include this slide. Now for the final mention, we'll be having role deep dives in project weeks 1 and 2, where we will be looking into the 6 roles that we have on a project, and there we include admin as a sort of low-code developer and general system owner. And then the inputs, the activities, and the outputs will be drilled down and concretized for our concrete project. And we'll also look into more role-specific skills and profiling roles. And it includes, for the architect role, giving concrete examples, which would theoretically have been possible briefly today, I admit, of a data model or a solution landscape. I hope your curiosity has been very much excited by all of this. And I guarantee that in the Launchpad program, if you participate, you will see so much more of all of this. Thank you so much. Yeah, thanks for your questions. I'm open for the Q&A.
Thank you so much, René. So So before we move to the Q&A, we get your questions ready. I'm coming there. But we have incredible people who have joined this session. And I see Eric Sebastian. So I'd like to give him a chance to say something just in case he drops in again. So Eric, can you go ahead and say hi to the team?
Hello, everyone. Really glad to join. Actually, I've been working with one of the attendees, Sarah Della, through the Salesforce Trailblazer mentorship program. So that's how I kind of got involved with this. So, really great program. I'm really happy to see, all the enthusiasm and effort, and looking forward to the programs coming forward and being able to help people find roles in Salesforce. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Eric, for that. And we would be glad if you mentor a team. We're glad you're doing it to one of us, and we're so happy about that. But we would appreciate if you mentor like 10 people at once. So thank you so much for joining, and we appreciate it. And definitely we are going to reach out to you for that. So now let's have our questions. You can put them in the chat, or we can just raise your hand and we are going to let you ask the question. Yes, Johnson, you can go ahead.
Hi, good evening, everybody. From my side, it's not a question per se, it's just to say that was a lot to take in, and we still need a lot of time to process it and see what we can make from it. And I hope that it gets better and clearer as the time goes on, because some of the parts I think were a bit confusing for me, especially when it comes to the architects, and how the entire thing is going to work. So yeah, it's more of a comment more than a question. Thank you.
Thank you. So René, we have one in the chat. How do I become a project manager?
Yeah, thank you so much for the question, Karabo. A very good question. I haven't checked Trailhead recently about that. It has grown extremely large, so I suppose there are quite a lot of project management techniques there, because that is one of the roles where we would first acquire a knowledge of project management, basically, and then specialize in Salesforce, or specialize in Salesforce and then embrace project management. So I think the answer is that for you who already know Salesforce, you would become familiar with how project management is done, and I suppose that you can leverage Trailhead for that. So you would learn about the famous triangle of projects, that you cannot optimize everything at the same time, that the attempt to do so is doomed to fail. So the cornerstones of project management, including all of the problems that typically arise, and the social skills that you need to have in that context, and the transferable skills that you can reuse from your existing background. So I'm not a project manager myself, as you can maybe see. But my advice would be, if you're interested in that, please be aware that there are certifications for project management, like from the Project Management Institute and other organizations. There are for sure also LinkedIn courses about project management. So Trailhead is not the only route to go. And I would start looking at who is like a junior project manager, who is like a project manager in my network already. Do I have friends, acquaintances who do that, schoolmates who became project managers? And I would ask people I already know about that. If I don't know anybody, I would look in my network on LinkedIn, identify a potential mentor who could mentor me on my project manager journey. And then I would explore blogs, videos, and I would, as such, set myself a goal to grow into that role and to eventually maybe acquire a certification. Interestingly, Salesforce has created a business analyst certification, but as far as I know, not a project manager certification. So you could argue this is missing, and you could argue that we should have one. That would be my answer.
Thank you, René, for that clarification. Mm, one more. I'm going to read it for you. Hello, everyone. So for me, the presentation was very clear, but I got one thing, want to ask for clarification on roles I just saw, admin, low code. Think that means declarative way and also so dev as it will require coding skills. So the question is, will the project need coding skills at all or declarative or both? Thanks.
So I'll try to answer and you double check me on that, please. So yes, I think we are having a developer approach in the project where I expect that there will be concrete guidance from Deria for the developer group in how to accomplish that and that it will be kept quite simple. That is my expectation when I see a developer as a role. And we clarified that the admin is the more general owner of the environment and will develop flows and so on. Yes, so that's declarative. Although declarative and low code would be interesting to compare the ideas. Is flow declarative? Yes and no. It's a form of development in a way. Yeah. But thank you for the question. So now can you double check me on my understanding? And do you also have the understanding that we are having a small piece of real development in the project?
Okay, let's hear from the participant. So another one, is CPQ same to Revenue Cloud?
Well, there are three products here. There is the existing old acquisition that Salesforce did. So Salesforce acquired SteelBrick. SteelBrick built configure, price, quote, so that we don't only remain with the abbreviation on the Salesforce platform. And then Salesforce acquired that and integrated it as a package into their platform. Not quite natively, but as a package. And then eventually Salesforce extended that with revenue and billing, which goes beyond the functional scope of CPQ. CPQ gives you quotes for your opportunities and then offers, and then you can have a contract and so on. And then in the quote to cash flow, revenue and billing once covered the billing part and the accounting. And now we have a new product that replaces basically all of that, in my understanding, and it's called Revenue Cloud Advanced. So two older products get replaced by one newer one.
Okay, thank you. I think Peace has said the same thing you're saying. Revenue Cloud involves CPQ, and CPQ is like our baby knowledge, but Revenue Cloud is broader. Thank you, Peace. More questions, more comments, anything?
If I may ask a question myself, what was most surprising to you, or which terms and concepts did I introduce that maybe weren't clear in the presentation and that you want me to elaborate on, maybe? Yeah. So Johannes asks, for the architect role, it's about design decisions and needs real project experience. So how can I be an architect without experience? Well, we can be junior architects that are guided in such a guided program. And you will receive in the role deep dive briefing on what the expected deliverables are and such. And there are already basic notions of architecture embedded in the admin curriculum. So there are basic modules in admin about data modeling, about creating objects, about basic things that an architect does. And it's a learning experience for everyone, not only for the architect role to be confronted with a real project or project simulation, to read a scenario and to think about solutioning. It's not only the architect role that will need to think along those lines, but the architect will be accountable for providing certain types of blueprints, data models, and so on. And that will be a guided experience. So it is actually possible to grow into a junior admin role with guidance.
Okay. Okay, another one.
Yeah, go ahead.
I haven't seen the consultancy roles. Is there any reason, or you just combined with project manager roles? Thanks.
Yeah, I didn't include that because it wasn't part of, I think, the original materials that I took as a starting point, and because it does not figure in the project definition that we have as part of our program. Just to briefly clarify on that, everybody on a project has to have a consulting mindset and is most of the time employed by a consultancy. Being employed by a consultancy makes you like a consultant by default. If we use consultant in a restrictive sense, then what we mean most of the time is a functional consultant that acts a bit like a project lead, like a senior role, or a junior consultant that is more like an low-code developer or an admin. So it's a bit of an ambiguous term. I would say consulting is a transversal mindset that everybody needs to have who realizes a project, and we could pinpoint maybe the admin as functional consultant if we want. So in that sense, consultant would be a synonym for admin.
Thank you. And then we have a comment. I think we need to be open to role play and of the roles since there will be guidance. Yeah.
Yeah, I agree. It's a genius idea to to do role play exercises. I hadn't seen it in the description yet, but yeah, I've discussed it with a friend the other day, and I think it's a really good idea.
And then, René, maybe I can just ask out of curiosity. Let's say we have a situation, let's say like all the team members want to be project managers. What happens?
Well, that's more Deria's responsibility to mainly throw his weight around and make decisions, and you guys, of course. But we need to end up with a scenario where everybody feels comfortable picking up one of the 6 roles. So there will be a couple of factors playing a role if we look at the what people stated when they onboarded the program. How does their LinkedIn profile look? Will be determining how to best suggest the role to everyone.
Yes, Margaret, go ahead.
Thank you. To answer you on that, I believe everyone in the project, in the delivery pods, I know there'll be roles like the admin, business analysts. However, I know we will all be in the projects. It doesn't matter if you've chosen like being a business analyst or an admin or a project manager. We will all be doing this together. It's not restricted. So you need to be open. We need to know like you can. I wanted to ask René this. When maybe I get employed in a small company, not an enterprise company, and as a admin, I'm given a project where I have to be a project manager, a business analyst, the architect, and the QA. You see, like you'll have to do all those roles. So you need to put yourself in a situation like this is a real work simulation. So you need to put yourself like maybe you've been employed in this company and you have to do everything by yourself. You have to be the BA, you have to be the project manager, you have to be the admin, the developer. So you like don't be choosy. Don't be choosy. That's what I can say. Just be open-minded, as Sarah Delia said. We need to be open-minded. Thank you.
Thanks, Margaret. Okay. I think we are done with the questions and the comments. So how was the session? Please tell us how the session was. Use the same code and tell us how the session was. We will be glad to hear from you. We have the link on the chat. You can click on the link and tell us how you feel. How was the session? I'll go ahead and read as they keep on coming. Eye-opening. Thank you, René, for taking time to share your experience with us. Informative, eye-opening. As always, very informative. Asante sana. Interesting and insightful. An eye-opening, clear and thoughtful. informative, detailed, and easy to understand. Thank you, René. The session was amazing and I enjoyed it much time. Thank you so much, guys, for your feedback. For me, maybe I'm just going to give my feedback, my verbal feedback to René. Thank you so much, René, René and Nuru, Jamii, Kenya, for organizing sessions like this. Because you realize some of us have done projects, and you move into doing projects without even knowing the kind of role that you're taking, or even, you're doing everything, but you don't know anything about the roles. You're gathering business requirements, you're solutioning, you're doing the configuration, but you have not interacted with the roles on a deeper level. Even I remember the first time we were doing our project, we were all confused because you don't know what you're going to do. And then at some point, we just ended up dropping our projects, and that's a story for another day. So thank you so much for making this clear to us, because you find most of us, we even see opportunities. Maybe we have jobs on LinkedIn. There are so many, but you're just stuck there and you're like, where do I actually fit? The roles are here, but I don't know where I fit because I don't know how to probably package myself. You've done all the things maybe the job is asking for, but you really don't know how to package yourself so well. So for me, this has been very eye-opening because I can align properly with whatever René has taught us. So thank you so much, René, for this. And we're going to keep on going through this so that we can be so clear with the roles as we move on with our project. And yeah, we are going to have a good experience in the pods. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thanks to all for this kind feedback. It's I'm conscious of the fact that you have been confronted with a long list of abstractions, and you haven't seen, in the interest of time, the concretization and an example behind each of those concepts. So it's a bit of a whirlwind, perhaps, and it's probably good that the slides will be available. And yeah, looking forward to the role deep dives where we can be more concrete.
Thank you. So now I would like to take this opportunity to invite Eva, and then she's going to give a vote of thanks, and then, yeah, thanks. Welcome, Eva.
Hi, René. Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for attending this session. It's an honor to have all of you here and to have you here all throughout the end. Thank you for your questions. And to René, we're really, really grateful for you coming on board and taking us through this two-part series session. It has been an eye-opener, and you've helped us step back and see the roles before the tools. You've helped us to see how these roles work together, for the sake of now bringing out the entire Salesforce activities and seeing it in terms of business value and how we can actually, work these roles in a real business environment. So thank you so much, because you've diluted us. You've diluted that aspect of the Salesforce ecosystem and how these roles work together. So even when now we start the real work project simulation, we are able to understand from the end or the overall picture. So thank you for that. Thank you for your engagement, for your content with Awesome Trail, and just thank you for working with us and everything that you've provided. You're a wealth of resource, and we are really, really grateful and humble. That's it for me. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you, Eve. So as usual, before we close, our communication is on WhatsApp for quick messages. We'll be using the emails for formal communications, and keep on checking the calendars. All the dates have been loaded, and probably we'll have another session that will be there, but that's it. So follow us on LinkedIn if you have not, and join our WhatsApp group. The link is on the chat. Thank you so much, guys, for joining, and looking forward to seeing you more and more. Thank you and bye.
Yeah, it has been a great pleasure to be here with you tonight. And thanks for following through this long presentation. Thank you so much.
Thank you too.
Thank you, René.
Thank you so much, René. Bye, everyone.
Bye. See you
Bye.
soon. Bye.
Okay, bye-bye.
Please play the music. Hakuna sauti.
Baby, baby, baby.
Wewe